Gollum asks, will all my Quest 2 games work Quest 3? Also, how long do in-controllers last and how many? I've gotten this question a surprising amount of times. Quest 2 games have been announced to be forwards compatible with the Quest 3. That's how in marketing they've been able to say 500 plus games on the Quest 3 at launch. So yeah, your Quest 2 games are going to work. Doesn't look like you're going to pay any upgrade fee. They'll just directly transfer over. The second half of that question, how long do in-controllers last? I'm guessing you mean the battery life on the controllers. This hasn't been confirmed anywhere yet, but these are very similar to Quest 2 controllers, which lasted weeks or even sometimes months for people. So it should be likely that the Quest 3 controller batteries last close to that amount of time. The only extra draw we should see is potentially the true haptics. Now will probably take a little bit more battery power. They do feel better. They feel stronger. There was something about a 2-stage trigger in the presentation, which we have not confirmed what exactly that means yet. And in the demos, I never felt that, although the trigger did feel weightier, but there's less IR lights and the same gigahertz band that's running to connect the controllers to the headset. So it should be a pretty similar battery life, if maybe just 20% lower. Another reason that I'm reasonably certain the power draw on the Quest 3 controllers won't be much higher than the Quest 2 controllers is the charge dock that you can now buy for the Quest 3. The batteries that it replaces your Quest 3 controllers with are tiny. 167 milliamp hours or 0.64 watt hours is what these batteries show directly on them. Considering that most AA's you buy for long-term use are between 2,500 and 3,000 milliamp hours, that means these tiny little batteries have to power these controllers at least for a full charge. The power draw must be pretty low. The Blades asks just a quick question. What is your recommendation on the 128GB or the 512 GB? I mean, how big are the games now and possibly be in the future on the Quest 3? Do you think 128 will fall a bit short? Quick history lesson for those of you who haven't been around for a long time. Quest 2 originally dropped a $300 edition with only 64 gigabytes of storage and a 256 edition. Later on, they made the 128, they replaced the 64 gig at the same price. Interestingly, now they're launching a 128 Quest 3 and a 512 Quest 3. I personally think the 128 will fall short eventually. They might even replace it with a 256 down the road. For now, though, the games that we're seeing coming up, Asgard's Wrath and Assassin's Creed, might start to push those file sizes bigger, but a lot of the other games we're seeing now that developers are making some of these mixed reality experiences, a lot of them feel very tech demo-y, feel very small, and those will probably take up less space than the games we've seen before. I think if at launch you bought a 128, you'd probably be fine for the first year or two, but ultimately I think you're going to wish you had more storage space. The question is, should you pay more for that 512 right now, or should you hold out and see if a 256 comes and replaces the 128? Personally, I'm going for the 512, but it is a big size and it is a big price. That said, I think 128 would be okay for now. So if you're someone that's like, oh, maybe in another year I'm going to want to buy a second one so that I can play with friends, especially those mixed reality in-home games, maybe get the 128 for now and then know that in a year if a 256 comes out, you can buy that one and have a couple headsets and save a little bit of money in the long run. DTZ says, I'm really surprised the Quest 3 is lighter without the strap because the new processor is supposed to use twice as much power as the old one, so wouldn't this need a bigger battery? And Jack Tomlinson also said, how long was the battery from what you experienced, and did the performance differ when it was lower if you got to experience that? I will say in my demo experience, I went for over an hour. I played multiple different games, mixed reality, VR, and they were casting it to an iPad the whole time so they gave me instructions on what to do. It was still over half of the battery left by the time I finished my demo, which makes me think the new spec sheet that they dropped with the battery life is hopefully pretty accurate. They're saying it's about 2.2 hours of use on average, 2.4 hours of gaming, 2.2 social, only 1.5 of productivity, and 2.9 hours of media. The charge time as well, they're saying 2.3 hours with the included 18-watt power adapter. I will be testing all these in the review video when I get my hands on the actual headset, but for now, from the experience I've seen, it does seem like these figures they're putting out are pretty accurate. Remember, the Quest Pro had much lower battery life even with a bigger battery because of the eye tracking and the face tracking were very battery hungry features. And back to Jack Tomlinson's question of did the performance differ when it was lower? I never saw the battery get under half, although I will say the Quest 2 and the Quest Pro both, I didn't see problems with the battery affecting the performance. It just got lower and then it suddenly died on you mid-game, which really sucks. In my Quest 3 first impressions video, I did mention that I could see some of that light bleed around the edges of the lenses that kind of looks like a brownish haze. Diamond P said in reference to that, I was hoping that brown haze around the edges won't be the issue here, but alas, it's here too. I fear once again it will be a lottery with Quest 3 as it was with Quest 2 in terms of lens quality. Diamond is referencing how basically with the Quest Pro, it seemed like between the manufacturers that were building two different designs of it, you didn't know which one you were gonna get. There was a Quest Pro that looked really good and there was a Quest Pro that the panels looked less good. I noticed it too as when I first demoed a Quest Pro, it seemed like the pass-through looked so good. Everything looked great on it. And then when I got one, I was like, this doesn't seem like it looked as good as the other one. We don't know so far if there is different manufacturers making the parts for these Quest 3s and if that is going to be a thing. I will say though, the demos I did in New York, the lighting was all set for it. The pass-through looked amazing. And then when I got to try other Quest 3s at Connect, I did notice a bit more in the darker zones of the room. You could see some more of that pixelating. You could see a little bit more of the haze over the dark areas that you're kind of used to from the pass-through from previous headsets. I believe it had more to do with lighting at this point, but we won't really know if there is going to be multiple sets that go out with different levels of quality until we start getting Quest 3s in homes. Jive Turkey asked, I'm most interested in the comfort comparisons between the Pro and the 3. I know the Pro fits you well, right? How does the 3 compare? A lot of people found the Quest Pro to be uncomfortable. They said the forehead pad was too small or it was misshapen for their head and they couldn't wear it for a long time. I was one of the rarities where my weird forehead shape, it felt like just right with the Quest Pro and I've worn it for hours on end. That said, I do think the Quest 3 in just raw terms of like 1 to 10, how comfortable is it? I would say it's nearly as comfortable as the Quest Pro just because that center of gravity feels so much better. If a Quest 2 with a stock strap was a 3 out of 10 and the Quest Pro for me was a 9 out of 10, I'd say the Quest 3 was about an 8 out of 10. And that's even with that stock strap, which like I mentioned, I would definitely replace that strap, but I think a lot of people out there are going to be more okay with the strap because it doesn't feel nearly as front heavy. It doesn't feel like it's hanging off your face as bad as the Quest 2 did. And what a lot of the other people even mentioned who tried it when they took it off didn't notice a horrible raccoon ring on their face like they typically did with the Quest 2. I think Quest 2 owners who stuck with the stock strap the whole time on Quest 2 are going to be blown away with the Quest 3, but I think people who had a good custom strap on the Quest 2 will still want to do the same for the Quest 3. Magnificent asks, are the Quest Pro controllers worth buying for this? Now the Quest Pro controllers are another $300 upgrade if you want to have controllers that do their own tracking, can be charged up, and have a much heavier weight feel in hand. I will say I think that they would be a great upgrade for anyone who really needs stellar tracking, especially when it comes to a game like Beat Saber where it's really fast. We saw that the tracking felt much smoother, much faster, and it just didn't lose tracking on the Quest Pro with the Pro controllers. Some people who got the Pro controllers and then used them with the Quest 2 found that it didn't feel like as big of a leap. The processing power of the Quest 2 seemed to lag a little bit still to where you didn't feel that snappiness you got with the Pro controllers, but with the 3 and those paired together, as long as it doesn't introduce any new glitches, it should feel like a huge upgrade. That said though, if you buy the $650 edition, you buy the $300 controllers, you buy a head strap, prices are starting to really add up. Magadini asks, so I'll be getting this at Best Buy. Should I bother getting the 2-year protection plan just for the controllers due to possible stick drift, or should I not get the plan and get the Quest Pro controllers instead and get them with the plan? I'm usually not one that opts for those protection plans, but I will say I saw a lot of people on Reddit that were really glad they got it. They were able to get their headset easily replaced if they had a problem. They were able to get their controllers easily replaced if they had a problem. And when I've dealt with Meta's customer support, I've had a hard time getting them to replace anything of mine in the past, so it does seem like these protection plans have paid off for a lot of people who got them. That said, if you really are asking only about the controllers themselves, if you have any inkling that you are going to want the Pro controllers, it would make more sense to save the money, get the Pro controllers and get a plan with them. But you may buy the Quest 3 and find that those controllers are good enough for what you're doing. So it kind of depends on if you are really certain you're going to eventually get those Pro controllers. The other half of Magadini's question here also, is the Elite battery strap for the Quest 3 any more durable than the Quest 2, or do you think it's still prone to breaking? For those of you who weren't around in the earlier days of the Quest 2, there was an issue where people who had owned the Meta-owned Elite strap for a while found them snapping. People were having them snap during use, but more people were having them snap just sitting in a drawer. They came back to their headset to find it had broken. It seemed that there was some sort of issue with the plastic composite and it was just snapping randomly. Meta was quick to replace anybody's strap who had had this issue, but some people were having this happen multiple times. Every strap they got replaced just kept breaking on them. It seemed over time they fixed at least some of them because I got my hands on a strap and I did everything I could to get that thing to break and it never broke. I've even left it sitting all dirty and gross for almost a year now to see if I came back to it and found it broken. It still isn't broken. I did get to touch the new Elite strap, I did get to mess with it, and it feels like the plastic is a little different and stronger, but unfortunately it's impossible to predict because a lot of them sat around feeling fine for months and then suddenly broke. I personally am going third party for my strap. I don't usually buy Meta's own accessories because a lot of times they're pretty spendy. Although the hand straps they're introducing for these look like they're going to work perfectly and integrate into the controllers, work with the charging stand, so I might actually use their hand straps. But for head straps, Bobo VR is my go-to. David Neck asks, for someone who has played both Quest 3 and PSVR 2, I want to ask which one seems better. This is a tricky question because the headsets are both so different now. If I had to ask right now which one feels more revolutionary, it is the Quest 3. Those thinner lenses, the fact that it's still wireless, the lightness of the controllers and where there's no tracking rings around getting in your way, the mixed reality experience on it, the pass-through being so clear, overall the Quest 3 feels much more revolutionary. Ultimately, this question always comes down to the games and what's going to happen in the games. PSVR 2 was kind kind of been letting us down. It seems like Synapse was one game that everybody's like, that delivered on its promise. But Firewall, Switchback games launched, and at launch they said, sorry, these weren't ready, and they apologize and say, we're gonna fix them, we're gonna make them better. I think that PSVR 2 has the capability, if they can get the right developers, because of the power behind it, the eye tracking, the foveated rendering, they could make much better, bigger, real gaming experiences. But because the Quest has been so successful, it has all this new technology in it, I fear the developers are going to head more towards the Quest. So for your overall experience, the ease of use, how quick you can get in and out of VR, someone asked me today, would you rather have a Quest 3 or a PSVR 2? I gotta say it's Quest 3. April Flowers asked, was the mixed reality a feature you can turn on and off? I would like sometimes to just immerse myself in the VR world without any reminders of my surroundings. The mixed reality is not exactly a feature that is or isn't always present. There will be some games that are mixed reality, some games that are just VR, and some games that have experiences for both. So you can pick games that are all virtual reality and not have to be stuck in that mixed reality world. The only time that you'd be forced upon that is when you go to the home environment. They are wanting the home environment to be your actual mixed reality home, or of course if you double tap the side, but both of those things can be disabled. So if you really want to just use this as a VR headset, you totally can. I will say, I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, why do they have MR? We don't care about this, we don't want this. I think after some people try a few experiences there, they might be like, okay, I'm starting to see the value, I'm starting to see the difference. And especially if you're trying to demo this to people who are really resistant to VR, you can tell them, oh, check out this is mixed reality. You're still gonna see the room around you, you're not gonna be cut off from the world. And I think you'll be able to get those people into headsets easier than before because the pass-through looks so true to life. Spencer Holland asks, pre-order now, wait for Black Friday / Cyber Monday. Any ideas what they might do for that sale? Historically, they have not dropped the price of the headset that recently after launch at these events. Typically, they make a little bit of a bundle, or if you go to Costco, you might get a bundle that like comes with the case that charges it, that comes with the charging dock, and you might be able to save a little bit on accessories like that. For me personally, with the FOMO, with how much is going to be happening at launch for this, people talking about it, I'm the kind of person that would pre-order this headset. I pre-ordered the PSVR 1 before I'd really tried VR because I was so interested in it. So that's my personal preference, and I don't think you're going to save a lot of money waiting a while. The only other answer would be maybe if you're leery about the headset in general, wait for final reviews to come in at launch and then order one. I've got so many more questions in the comments. I'm filtering through, trying to catch up on them. So this is just going to be part one of multiple videos where we go through your questions and try to answer them. You can drop some more questions under this video if yours didn't get answered. I'm gonna do my best to keep up with you, but we got a lot going on between now and launch. Thank you once again for coming out. Thank you. We just hit 50,000 this morning. Absolutely wild time, wild week at Connect last week. So thank you again, everyone, and I will see you in another reality.